Hi, welcome along to Barbecue Life UK, where great barbecue doesn't have to cost a fortune. Today we are talking spatchcock chickens and whether to cook them direct or indirect. So for those of you that are new here, my name is Tom, and as I say, today we are talking spatchcock chickens. So I get quite a few questions, maybe one or two a week, asking about cooking a spatchcock chicken in the Aldi Kamado and whether to put the deflector plate in. So I thought the best way to do that is to show you the difference between the two. So I'm going to be using the Yanni divide and conquer system, so we can have half of the chicken over an indirect side and the other half over a direct side. So we can get a comparison on exactly the same chicken, and I think you'll be quite surprised by the results, I think is the best way to put it. So first of all, I just want to show you quickly how to spatchcock a chicken. For those of you that don't know, there's still a lot of people out there cooking beer can chicken, and in my opinion, a spatchcock chicken is much superior. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're interested in finding out about spatchcock chicken versus beer can chicken, because it is coming up on a future video where I'm going to be cooking two chickens at the same time. One is a beer can, one is a spatchcock, so that you can see the differences between the two. So as I say, we're going to start off by spatchcocking this chicken. So I always score through the skin and through the meat either side of the spine on the bird. This just makes it easier for slicing through. So you can use a knife or you can use a pair of scissors. I'm using a knife today because a lot of people tend to don't like scissors, or the scissors aren't strong enough to be able to cut through the bones. So it's not an easy process. Mind your fingers, and you just got to find where the back of the ribs join that spine and just cut it down through that cartilage at the joint at that point, and it makes things a bit easier. So you cut down one side and then you cut down the other side, and you can just take the spine straight out. At this point, there's a keel bone, which is basically the breastbone, right up the top end, so underneath the breasts. Give that a little slice through, and that's just going to make flattening out the bird a lot easier. So we flip the bird over and fold it all out so that the thighs come out and the breasts lay flat. Bit of pressure on the top so that you get a nice flat cooking zone, and that's going to make for even cooking across the top. Now here's another thing, is do you cut into the meat on a spatchcock chicken or do you leave it? So 50-50 on this. It depends on when I've put my rub on and whether I'm rubbing it. So if you want your rub to be able to penetrate into the meat itself on the chicken, then you're going to need to slice through the skin into the meat to get the rub in there. If you are only interested on putting small seasonings on the outside just to get a crispy skin, then it's not worth scoring, because you're not looking to get that flavour into the chicken itself. You're only looking to get that flavour onto the skin and to give you a crispy skin. So as I say, today I'm going to score it. So just put a few slash marks through the legs and the thighs and the breast on both sides, and then I'm going on with my rub. So I'm using the Rusty Barbecue Company's Chook Chalk and core powder, so just a nice liberal amounts on there. The other thing that you could do is you can always brine your chicken, and this is going to give you more flavour inside the meat, but it doesn't tend to be something I do. This is a pretty quick cook at the end of the summer holidays, and we're in and out with the kids, so literally just got in and it's time to prepare the chicken and get the grill on. So not a lot of time for letting the flavours penetrate in this particular cook. So we're going to put that chicken over to one side. Now we've got our seasonings on there, and we're going to get the Aldi Kamado lit. So I'm just going in with 3 Woodies because I want quite a hot heat in the barbecue today. We're going to get it up to temperature quite quickly. So I'm using that Lecto charcoal again. I'm not telling you to go out and buy it. I did get it sent for free. I'm quite impressed with it so far. I've still got to do a low and slow cook with it and see where I sit with that before I give final verdict on what I think of it. So once that charcoal is ashed over and it's starting to glow, this is when we're going to get our lid shut. So I'm aiming for a temperature of 200 to 210 degrees C, so quite hot for a chicken, but this helps us get a better skin on a spatchcock chicken, and because we've spatchcocked it, it's not going to be in there for a massive amount of time. So get them vents set, so vents fully open at the bottom and hinged open at the top, just while you're coming up to temperature. Keep checking the temperature on that dome, because you are going to get false readings to begin with while that flame is really taking. The metal is more conductive in your temperature probe than what the ceramic is. So if you see it shoot to 200 and you start closing down your vents pretty quickly, then the ceramic hasn't warmed up and the heat is just going to be sucked into ceramic, and you're going to end up with a lower temperature. So once that ceramic starts to warm up and our temperatures are starting to climb, that is when we want to dial in our temperatures on there. So for 200 degrees C, I'll go about 2.5 fingers on the bottom vent, and the top vent, the daisy wheel is open, and this tends to dial in around 190 to 210, and mine sat dead at 200 for this entire cook today. So, but obviously different people's fingers are different widths, and the different charcoals that you use can give you a different temperature for airflow. So just, you're gonna have to work that last little piece out for yourself. So we've got it dialed into 200. I've got the Yanni divide and conquer in there using a half moon deflector plate. So we've got that half indirect and half direct. You can see that the charcoal underneath it is really glowing well. So it's time to get this chicken on. So we go open side down. So the piece that we fanned open goes onto the grill, so that the breasts and the thighs and everything are upwards. And what I'm expecting out of this cook is that you're going to see a lot more colour on the underside of the bird that is direct, and a lot less colour on the underside of the bird from the indirect side. So we're going to put this in there. I'm not using a temperature probe today because I know roughly times on birds. I know that we shouldn't go by times, we should always go by temperature. So that's why after 40 minutes I'm going to come out and probe it and check the temperature. So this is a large chicken. If you were doing a small or a medium chicken, then obviously you're going to want to be checking your internal temperatures earlier on than that, or just use a temperature probe. I tend to use the Inkbird IBT 4XS for cooks like this. But as I say, I've got a large chicken pretty much nailed in now. I know roughly where I am, so within 10 to 15 minutes depending on the moisture content within the bird. Interaction is massively important to a small YouTube channel like myself, so if you could just take the time to like the video or leave me a comment underneath, it would be greatly appreciated. Or if you want to go to whole hog, then please do subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss a single video from Barbecue Life UK. So after 40 minutes I come out and I check the temperature, and we're sitting around 60 degrees. So I want to flip the bird over now. So because I want to make sure that I keep the direct side over the direct side of the barbecue and the indirect over the indirect side of the barbecue, instead of flipping the bird like this, we need to flip the bird like this. So front to back on the barbecue, which isn't as easy to do. So you can see me looking a bit cack-handed as I do it, but we're going to flip it over and then we get to see the underside of that bird and see whether I was right in my predictions. We flipped it over, and there is slightly more colour on the underside of that direct side of the bird compared to the indirect side, but not as much as I thought. I was expecting a lot more charring on the bottom of the direct side over the indirect side, so that is quite surprising. So as I say, we've flipped it over now, so this just helps us crisp up the skin, get a bit more colour on the skin, and finish the bird off for them final sort of about 12 degrees left to go. So I leave this skin side down for 10 minutes and then I come out and flip it over. So I find 10 minutes is generally about all I need, otherwise I get too much colour on the skin. The fat tends to drip from the thighs onto the fire, and you get the heat tends to rise in the barbecue, and you get little flare-ups with inside. So by only doing it for 10 minutes you don't get too much of that, so we're not going to gain too much colour. So again, we're now going to flip front to back so that we can keep that direct side over the direct and the indirect over the indirect side. And again, there's not a massive amount of colour difference between the two. I was expecting a lot more colour on the direct and a lot less colour on the indirect, but they're pretty even. I'll take you in a bit closer. There's slightly more colour on the direct side, but not half as much as I was expecting there to be. So we're going to check the temperature again. 74 degrees C is safe for chicken. You can take it off a degree to 2 degrees below that, just because you're going to get a bit of carryover. But mine's sitting at 73. I'm going to take it off now and let it rest for 10 minutes before we carve into it. So we've got that chicken onto the plate. It's been rested. As I say, I'm really surprised by the difference in the colour, sorry, the lack of difference within the colour between the two. So I now want to see whether the direct side has dried out more than the indirect side. So we're going to take a slice out of each side. So I'll start with the direct side, take a slice out of there, and as you can see, it's still really moist. And then I'll take a slice out of the indirect side, and that is equally as moist. So the main verdict at the end of this, for everybody that messages me and says, do I put a deflector plate in, is if you were cooking in a Kamado, it doesn't make any difference at all. If you were cooking in something like a Weber kettle, where you're a lot closer to the heat, then I would say you're cooking indirect all day long, because you are just going to burn things to oblivion being directly over the heat like that. You want charcoal baskets off to each side and a nice indirect zone in the middle. But with the distance between the coals in a Kamado, or if you was cooking in a UDS, an ugly drum smoker, or a Weber Smoky Mountain, where again you've got that distance between the heat source at the bottom and the meat at the top, then I can't see it making any difference. As you can see from the pictures here, the footage that I've shown you, there is no difference between direct and indirect. So if you like what we're doing here at Barbecue Life UK, then please do subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching.